The Eternal Council had ruled the galaxy for 17 million years. They were the oldest beings in existence. Their ships could destroy entire star systems with a single command. Their technology was so advanced that younger species called it magic. The 5 races of the Eternal Council had conquered over 200,000 civilizations across the Milky Way. Every species they met eventually knelt before them. Every world they visited eventually surrendered. This was the natural order of things. The strong ruled, the weak served. There were no exceptions to this rule. Until humanity. The Council first detected Earth in what humans called the year 2089. Their long-range sensors found a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. The planet had primitive electromagnetic signals leaking into space, radio waves, television broadcasts, simple communications that revealed a species still playing with basic technology. The Council sent an observation drone to study these creatures. What they found confused them deeply. Humans were weak. Their bodies broke easily. They lived for less than 100 years. They had no natural weapons like claws or poison. They could not survive in extreme heat or cold. They needed constant food and water and sleep. By every measurement the Council used, humans were one of the weakest intelligent species ever discovered. They should have been easy to conquer. They should have been grateful for the opportunity to serve their betters. The Council dispatched a single envoy ship to Earth. This was standard procedure. One ship was always enough. The envoy would land. The envoy would demonstrate the Council's power. The local species would understand their place in the universe. Simple, clean, efficient. Ambassador of the race led the mission. He had personally overseen the submission of 43 civilizations. He knew exactly how this would proceed. He landed his ship in the largest population center on Earth, a sprawling city that humans called New Shanghai. His ship settled in the middle of a public square. Millions of humans watched through cameras as the vessel descended from the clouds. Emerged from his ship, he stood 12 feet tall. His body was covered in armored scales that could stop projectile weapons. His 4 arms ended in hands that could crush stone. Behind him, his personal guard of 20 elite soldiers followed. Each soldier carried weapons that could level city blocks. The humans sent representatives to meet him. They were small, fragile, looked down at them with something between pity and contempt. Their leader was a woman named Santos. She was the Secretary General of something called the United Nations. She stood barely 5 feet tall. She had no armor, no weapons, no protection of any kind. Delivered his message. The Eternal Council claimed this world. Humanity would serve the Council. They would provide workers for Council projects. They would provide resources from their planet. They would obey all commands without question. In exchange, the Council would allow them to continue existing. This was generous. This was merciful. Most species were simply exterminated. Santos listened carefully. She did not interrupt. When finished speaking, she asked a simple question. "And if we refuse?" Was surprised. No species had asked this question in over 6,000 years. He explained the obvious answer. If humanity refused, the Council would destroy them. Every city would burn. Every human would die. Their planet would become a dead rock floating in space. Resistance was not just futile. Resistance was insanity. Santos nodded slowly. She seemed to consider his words carefully. Then she looked up at the towering alien ambassador and spoke words that would echo through galactic history. "Then we refuse." Did not understand at first. He asked her to repeat herself. She did. Humanity refused to surrender. Humanity refused to serve. Humanity would fight. Humanity would resist. They knew they might lose. They knew they might die. But they would not kneel. They would never kneel. The ambassador contacted the Eternal Council. He reported this strange response. The 5 rulers of the galaxy were amused. They had seen Defiance before. It never lasted. They authorized to demonstrate Council power. He was to destroy one human city as an example. The rest would then submit. Chose a city called Mumbai. 80 million humans lived there. His ship rose into the sky and fired a single plasma bolt. The weapon struck the ocean 20 miles from the coast. The resulting wave and heat killed over 30,000 humans instantly. He expected surrender. He received something else entirely. Within hours, humans across the planet began fighting back. They launched missiles at his ship. The missiles were primitive. They could not penetrate his shields, but they kept coming. Thousands of them. Then tens of thousands. Humans flew aircraft directly into his vessel, sacrificing themselves to cause tiny amounts of damage. They were dying by the millions, and they did not stop. Called for reinforcements. The Council sent a battle fleet of 50 ships. The fleet arrived and began systematic bombardment of human military positions. Humans died by the hundreds of millions. Their cities burned. Their armies were vaporized. Their weapons were useless against Council technology. But the humans did not surrender. Survivors crawled out of the rubble and kept fighting. They used rocks when they ran out of bullets. They used their bare hands when they ran out of rocks. Old people fought. Children fought. The sick and wounded fought. Every human who could still move continued to resist. The Council had never seen anything like this. Other species broke after losing 1% of their population. Humans had lost 40% and were still fighting harder than ever. The Council commanders studied human psychology. They analyzed human history. What they found disturbed them deeply. Humans had always been like this. Their history was filled with examples of hopeless resistance, small groups fighting against impossible odds, individuals choosing death over submission. There was something fundamentally different about human minds. They valued freedom more than survival. They valued dignity more than comfort. They would rather die standing than live kneeling. The Council increased their assault. They deployed weapons designed to break the will of conquered species, psychological warfare, pain generators, mind control devices. Nothing worked. Humans seemed to grow stronger under pressure. Their resistance became more organized, more effective, more determined. 2 years into the war, something unexpected happened. Humans captured a Council ship. It was heavily damaged and crashed in a remote mountain region. The crew was dead, but the technology was intact. Human scientists studied the wreckage. They learned. They adapted. They began building their own versions of Council weapons. The Council was shocked. No species had ever reverse-engineered their technology so quickly. Humans were supposedly primitive. Their science was thousands of years behind Council levels. Yet within months, they were producing energy shields. Within a year, they had plasma weapons. Within 2 years, they had built their first interstellar vessel. Human ingenuity proved as dangerous as human defiance. They did not just copy Council technology. They improved it. They combined it with their own innovations. They created weapons and tactics that the Council had never encountered. Guerrilla warfare in space. Suicide attacks using faster-than-light missiles. Biological weapons designed specifically to target Council species. The war continued for 20 years. The Council committed more and more resources. They brought ships from across the galaxy. They deployed weapons that had destroyed entire civilizations. Earth was bombarded until its surface was barely recognizable. Human population dropped from 10 billion to less than 1 billion. But that 1 billion refused to surrender. They had spread to other worlds by then. They had colonized asteroids and moons. They had built hidden bases throughout the solar system. They had sent generation ships to distant stars. Humanity could not be contained, could not be controlled, could not be conquered. The Council faced a terrible choice. They could commit everything to destroying humanity completely. This would mean pulling forces from across their empire. Other subject species might rebel. The cost would be astronomical, or they could accept something unthinkable. They called for a ceasefire. Ambassador was long dead by then, killed by a human sniper on Mars. A new ambassador was sent. This one came not with demands but with an offer. The Council proposed peace. Real peace. not submission but alliance. Humanity would be recognized as an equal partner in galactic affairs. The human representative who received this offer was a young woman named Maya Santos. She was the granddaughter of Santos, who had died in the bombing of Geneva. Maya had grown up in underground bunkers. She had lost her parents, her siblings, and most of her friends to council weapons. She had every reason to hate the aliens standing before her. She accepted the peace offer. When asked why she did not demand revenge, Maya gave an answer that confused the council delegates. She said that humanity did not fight because they hated their enemies. They fought because they loved their freedom. Now that their freedom was recognized, there was no reason to continue killing. Humans could be fierce enemies. They could also be loyal friends. The choice was now up to the council. The treaty was signed in the ruins of New Shanghai. Representatives from all 5 council races attended. For the first time in 17 million years, they stood as equals with another species. For the first time in their long history, they had met something they could not conquer. News of the treaty spread across the galaxy. Subject species heard how the weak, primitive humans had fought the council to a standstill. They heard how defiance was possible. They heard how even the masters of the universe could be made to bow. Rebellions broke out on 100 worlds. The Council's grip on the galaxy began to loosen. Within 50 years, the Eternal Council was no longer eternal. Their empire fragmented. Their power faded. New alliances formed with humanity at their center. Historians would debate for centuries why humanity succeeded where so many others had failed. Some pointed to human adaptability. Some pointed to human creativity. Some pointed to human stubbornness. But most agreed on one fundamental truth. Humans simply did not know how to quit. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the oldest or the most advanced, but they had something no other species possessed in such abundance. They had a spirit that could not be broken, a will that could not be crushed, a defiance that burned hotter than any star. The masters of the universe had ruled through fear. They had conquered through strength. They had never understood that some things were stronger than fear. Some things were more powerful than weapons. The human spirit was such a thing. In the end, the Eternal Council did not fall because humanity destroyed them. They fell because humanity showed the galaxy that they could be challenged. They could be resisted. They could be defeated. And in showing this, humanity changed the universe forever. Santos never lived to see the final victory, but her words lived on. Her simple refusal echoed through history. Then we refuse. 3 words that started a revolution. 3 words that ended an empire. 3 words that proved that courage was more powerful than any weapon ever created. The galaxy remembered. The galaxy learned. And when new tyrants arose in later ages, they always found the same lesson waiting for them. Humanity would never kneel.